elusive, isn't it? How often have you thought, if only I had that car, then I'd be satisfied. If only I could find that someone to truly love me, then I'd be happy. If only I wasn't under so much financial stress, then I'd be content. If only. The good news I have for you today is this. All of the if-onlys in the world, even if they all came true, still could not guarantee your happiness. Most of us have discovered at one time or another that cars, houses, jewelry, and other material gains don't bring happiness for long. After the immediate rush of joy at receiving something we've longed for, then we're hit with the unique problems that every gain brings. Well, where do we look to find happiness? Riches? It will take more than that. Recognition? Fame is fleeting. Relationships? But even those who love you will sometimes let you down. Recreational drugs? Oh, they create habits that spell nothing but trouble. Then how do you find happiness? The Be Happy attitudes. What are they? Well, you've probably heard of them as the Beatitudes. The 8 positive attitudes that come from the 8 opening lines of Jesus of Nazareth's famous Sermon on the Mount. Here they are. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. What is their secret? Why have they proven unsurpassed as successful therapy to depressed minds across centuries and cultures, classes, and ethnic groups? Each sentence contains the spiritual motivation to alter a human being's mental attitude. What we really have in the Beatitudes is a therapeutic exercise in replacing negative attitudes with positive attitudes. Yes, here, unsurpassed, unmatched in helpful literature, are 8 positive attitudes that will transform any life, and that starts with you. Now, discover them. Apply them, and enjoy life with these Be Happy attitudes. Happiness is not dependent on whether or not we have problems, any more than it is dependent on whether or not we have material wealth. After all, poverty is not just a matter of finances. Every person faces some kind of poverty. We all have a need at some level in our life. It may be financial poverty, but it might be occupational poverty. Either a lack of success in our chosen profession, or merely a lack of direction, a lack of a dream or a goal. It may be intellectual poverty, maybe emotional poverty. The secret of successful living is simple. You and I must discover our poverty pocket, our soft spot, our weak link, our ignorant area. Then we must become poor in spirit as well, which means face up to our poverty, admit it, humble our attitude, acknowledge our weakness, and ask for help. Admit your need. It's not easy, but it is essential. In all areas of our lives, the principle remains the same. Happiness comes when you admit where you're lacking and what you lack and where and when you have a need. If it is true that each of us is poor somewhere in our lives, then why are we so reluctant to admit it? Consciously or subconsciously, we develop defense mechanisms against exposure. We try to shield ourselves, especially in areas where we sense we are vulnerable. We are reluctant to admit our needs. Don't be afraid of embarrassment or rejection. What we do need to fear is the result that will come from hiding our lack, our need, our poverty. Blessed are the poor in spirit. How can this be happy attitude change you and me? Well, by inspiring us to learn the power of two miracle-working confessions. The first, I need help. And the second, I'm sorry. Now, such forthright confessions are the beginning of a new beginning. Let's examine the miracle power available to us when we simply learn to say, I need help. If you feel trapped, lost, out of control, chained by difficulties, then I have good news for you. Your chains can lead to a change. If you are willing to say these three wonderful words, I need help. Happy is that person who knows where he or she is poor and is open enough to admit it. Yes, success and healing comes to the person who is able to ask for help. The surprising thing is, admitting your need for help doesn't give your ego the blowout you might expect. On the contrary, it causes you to become a person of such emotional and intellectual integrity that people will begin to trust you. And they'll go along with you. And in the process, you will gain tremendous self-respect and self-esteem. Because think of it, the alternative is to play games, put on a front, pretend to be something you're not, and hope that nobody will ever catch you without your mask on or your hair fixed right or your guard up. You're not going to get the help you need by putting on a false front and pretending you don't have a problem or hoping it'll go away. The truth is that there are people and there is somebody right now who would find great joy in helping you with your problem and your need and your poverty if he or she only knew that you needed help. I'm sorry. When you learn to make this confession, you'll find happiness because you will discover the miracle-working power that comes to an honest person. You and I are free once we dare to admit we've been wrong. Instead of an ego trip, let's take an integrity trip. That's the road to real happiness. For the integrity trip really feeds our self-esteem. We can be proud of ourselves for being open, honest, and humble. So we aren't embarrassed when people catch us making mistakes. When we've done something wrong, all we need to say is, I'm sorry. To the ones we've hurt, we can say, I'm a human being. When you discover the secret of the first be happy attitude, when you are able to say, I need help, or I'm sorry, or I have made a mistake, or I was wrong, or I don't know all the answers, or I need to make changes, then you will have taken that first important step toward being truly happy. For then you will have the right positive mental attitude that can free you to move on into the other be happy attitudes. I strongly believe that there is a logical progression to the Beatitudes. They are interdependent on each other, and one is a prerequisite for the next. So, are you willing to be helped? Do you want to be happy? Are there some areas in your life where you are lacking and need help? Of course there are. Then be happy, for you have the one essential ingredient you need to begin this beautiful process of discovering the secret that remain in the remaining be happy attitudes. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. As a pastor, I am in the specialized work of dealing with the hurt, the lonely, the suffering, the sick, and the dying. Over and over again, I have seen the sorrow, and I have witnessed one fact. God does comfort good people when bad things happen to them. Yes, it's possible to be happy even in a world where sorrow casts its long gray shadow. For trouble never leaves us where it found us. Sorrow will change your tomorrow. And God inspires us to become better people, not bitter people. He shows us that the negative can be turned into a positive. Then how can we find relief from grief? 1, realize what you can do about it. 2, realize what God can do for you. First, here's what you can do. If you are going through a heartbreak, really having a tough time, don't blame God. Human error is almost always the culprit. Error of judgment, error of will, error of purpose. Human selfishness, human indifference, human rebellion, folly, stupidity, brashness can almost always be found as the root cause of human misery, tragedy, and suffering. Cancer and heart disease, for instance, along with other related illnesses, are the top killers in America today. And no one will ever be able to place the blame of these diseases on God. In time or eternity, we shall see the truth that all disease is dis-ease, a lack of harmony between a human organism and its proper environment. Disease is often caused by not eating right or sleeping right or exercising right or breathing right. It is a question of not attaining a harmonious balance with our surroundings. If disease appears, man is doing something wrong. So don't blame God for the suffering in this world. Blame human beings for personally choosing paths that lead to heartache and sorrow. Now, don't blame God, and don't blame yourself. Guilt is always mixed in with grief. You see, self-condemnation will solve nothing and will change nothing. Self-condemnation is merely a negative, non-constructive emotion which can wreak havoc in your life. Don't fix the blame. Fix the problem. So, what is your problem? First, recognize that the real problem is not the tragedy. The real problem is your reaction to it. If you do not take control of your reaction to your loss, you can and probably will eventually be destroyed by it. So, how do you fix the problem? Let me give you several suggestions. First, make a decision not to go on for the rest of your life surrendering to sorrow and tears. To do this only disgraces your loved ones, your friends, and yourself. Make a decision that this non-constructive sorrow mixed with self-pity and self-blame simply has to stop. The second way to fix the problem: do not accept defeat. Somehow we must learn to accept the reality of the bad thing that happens to us without accepting emotional defeat. Be brave, fight back, come back again. Now the third way to fix the problems: bury your selfish griefs. Grief which keeps you from thinking of and helping others is selfish grief. Around you is a world filled with living human beings who are hurting as much and more than you are. There are lonely people, heartbroken people, dying people out there. And you are stronger than they are. You can comfort them. Now a fourth way to fix up the problem: add up your joys. Never count your sorrows. Look at what you have left. Never look at what you have lost. At a time of sorrow, you are so overwhelmed and swamped by the shock, the pain, the hurt, the anger, the grief, that you are not even conscious of the joys that are still alive deep under that blanket of grief. Begin by reminiscing. Relive your happy memories. Draw them out. Treat yourself to replays of the great collection of joyful experiences that have occurred in your past. Remember the good times. There are so many wonderful things that have happened to you in your life. Number 5, turn your sorrow into your servant. Once you have buried your griefs, you are ready now to turn your sorrow into a helpful partner. Grief can be either a demonic dictator. It can turn you into a cynical, doubting, resentful, self-pitying recluse and drunkard, or it can be a servant, helping you to become more compassionate, giving you visions for new avenues. So, make the only sensible choice. Let your sorrow then turn you into a better person, and your sorrow can turn out to be a blessing. You'll turn your scars into stars. Now, the 6th way to fix the problem. Accept the comfort that God wants to offer you. God is not the source of sorrow. Man's selfishness and sin brought sorrow and continues to bring sorrow into this world. God moves in immediately and forthrightly to bring comfort. Not a sympathy that only weakens a hurting person. He offers a tough love that turns us into sweeter and stronger persons. God comforts masterfully. How? In 5 ways. He gives us courage. Then he gives us a sense of calmness. Then he gives us companionship. And then he gives us compassion. And finally, he gives us a new set of creative commitments. People facing tragedy suddenly take a new look at their whole life. Their whole perspective changes. Some of the treasures they valued so highly don't seem valuable anymore. Their value system changes. And believe me, when your value system changes, your heart changes, your mood changes, your mind changes, your life changes, your relationships change. Family becomes more important. Husband, wife, brothers, sisters, parents, children. Relationships become more precious. Life itself becomes more important than the day-to-day occupation or material possessions. When your values change, your life changes. And that's why people who mourn are really comforted. Believe it or not, when bad things happen to good people, they do become happy people. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Doesn't that sound ridiculous? We live in a high-powered country called the United States of America. Don't we all know that it is the high-energy, powerful promoter, the wheeler dealer, who gets ahead? Does this verse mean that we are never to speak up and defend ourselves? Well, if we go back to the original Greek and examine the word that was originally translated as meek, we see how misconception quickly arises concerning this Bible verse. Actually, the word meek is not a good translation of the Greek word. Not, that is, in terms of the modern usage of the word meek. A better modern translation of this Greek would be, blessed are the mighty, the emotionally stable, the educable, the kind-hearted, for they shall inherit the earth. This is the kind of person who will be successful and inherit the earth. Meek, what does it mean? The answer lies in the word itself. M will stand for the word mighty. E will stand for the phrase emotionally stable. E will stand for educable. K will stand for kind. Now let's take a look at that. Blessed are the mighty. Think of it. What is real strength? What is authentic might? Who is the stronger? The young man who gives in to his rage and becomes physically or verbally abusive, or the young man who remains calm and assured of his inner strength? Who are the mighty? The powerful are mighty when they've learned how to restrain their power. They know that real might lies in control, discipline. Mighty, they are those who remain gentle while they build strength, who are merciful while they are mighty. Blessed are they, for they shall not merely win a war, they shall win the hearts of the country people. The weak are also mighty, when they turn their problems into projects, their sorrows into servants, their difficulties into dividends, their obstacles into opportunities, their tragedies into triumphs, and their stumbling blocks into stepping stones. It's being able to harness the handicap, to use it to pull others out of the ditch of depression. Emotionally stable. Who are the emotionally stable? They are those who through discipline have developed a divine poise. They hold their negative impulses in check. They avoid and resist distractions, temptations, which would excite and stimulate, but which would drain their financial, moral, and physical resources. They're people who stick to their objectives, keep their eyes focused on their goals. And when they meet with problems, they patiently overcome those problems and work through their difficulties. More than one person has reached the top because he patiently endured the difficult times. He might have been tempted to turn, run, lash out at the person who hurt him, but he didn't. More than one person has suffered through a time of stress in the company, in the marriage, with the children, and his patience has paid off. There is a success principle that I call the laminated principle. It works like this. You make a promise and deliver. You accept an assignment and you fulfill it. You attempt the impossible and you pull it off. Finally, year after year, maybe decade after decade, one accomplishment on top of another, one achievement overlaid over a past achievement, promises kept, commitments fulfilled, you suddenly land up with a reputation like a laminated beam that has durability and power, and people believe in you. They take you at your word. They'll sign a contract with you because they know you're going to deliver. And at that point, you have inherited the earth. Blessed are the patient people. Blessed are the persistent people. They will ultimately win. The second E, blessed are the educable. Educable people, those who are teachable, don't suffer from a know-it-all attitude. No, you can be certain. An unhappy attitude is the I've got all the answers, I know it all attitude. Educable people allow room in their life for growth. They listen. They're not defensive. They want to improve. They're not on an ego trip. They're on a success trip. If their way isn't the best, they'll switch. Blessed are the teachable, for they shall succeed. The educable, they are humble in their teachability. Humility doesn't mean that you put yourself down and say, I'm nobody, I can't do it. That's not humility. Real humility is the awareness that there are others who can help you. Real humility is the capacity to say, I was wrong, you were right. M-E-E-K, that spells meek. And the K stands for kindness. Without kindness, we have only M-E-E. And that spells me. And that's an unhappy attitude. Who are the kind people? Well, they are sensitive spirits to begin with. They are the quiet people. They do so much good for so many without fanfare, glory-seeking, or headline hunting. No wonder they inherit the trust, the respect, and love of the truly beautiful people in this world. It begins to make sense, doesn't it? This be happy attitude is beginning to sound like the best advice ever offered. And indeed, it is true. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Let me ask you these questions. Are you mighty enough to be controlled and disciplined? Are you emotionally stable enough to resist temptation? Are you educable enough to realize you can't do it alone? And are you kind enough to be sensitive, quiet, unselfish? If you are, you will have mastered the third of the be happy attitudes. I promise you then, it's possible for you to come to the end of your life with pride behind you, love around you, and hope ahead of you. Who could ask for anything more? Most of us in America never know what it's like to be hungry and thirsty, right? Wrong. Almost every person suffers from some kind of emotional or spiritual hunger. Why are so many of us constantly restless in a pursuit of something more? Something is missing, we vaguely but strongly suspect, even when things are going well for us. How do you understand? How do you analyze? How do you interpret or explain the emotional restlessness that relentlessly pressures people to reach further, climb higher, acquire more? So busy are we in our planning tomorrow that we never taste the pleasure of the present moment. How can you be sure that you won't blow the one life you have to live? How can you satisfy your heart's deepest hungers? Where does genuine satisfaction come from? Does the answer lie in fame, or is success the answer? Does satisfaction come with power, or is sexual gratification where it's at? Fame does not satisfy, neither does success. The secret of satisfaction, happiness, fulfillment, how can we find it? Jesus said, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness. They shall be satisfied." And in that one powerful sentence, Jesus taught how we can satisfy that heart's deepest longing and hunger. The question, what is righteousness? Well, righteousness certainly is not merely avoiding temptation successfully. It goes beyond that. Righteousness comes through positive repentance. And positive repentance is a twofold process. It is saying no to the negatives and yes to the positives. Question, how do we develop a righteous character? To begin with, we need to be selective in what we feed our minds and souls. By that I mean negative attitudes, negative reactions, negative responses that bombard us every day. Somehow, we need to insulate ourselves against these negatives and diligently seek the positive, the good, the righteous thoughts, the righteous dreams, the righteous actions. Righteousness comes through positive affirmations. I'm a child of God. I'm God's idea, and God only gets good ideas. I can do something. I will do something. I want to do something great for God and for the human family. I'm willing to take risks. So when you attempt the impossible, you will discover that you will be filled with excitement, enthusiasm, energy, youth, happiness. So righteousness is attempting to accomplish some beautiful possibility. Win or lose, the attempt will build your self-esteem. Succeed or fail, you can be sure of this. You'll be able to live with yourself and not be ashamed, which means you can be proud that you tried. That's satisfaction. It comes when you know you are a worthy, valuable person, that you did make a contribution. You did make a difference. It's the assurance that somebody's life will have been improved because you passed their way. That is greatness. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. In this Be Happy attitude is a sure prescription for happiness. Learn to live by this refreshing happy attitude. It's not what happens to me that matters most. It's how I react to what happens to me. Be sure of this. If you have the attitude that you should forever be spared from all pain, hurt, and grief, you can be positive that someday you will be jolted with a depressing disillusionment. Sorrow, rejection, bereavement hit all of us at some point in our lives. To expect that somehow we are privileged persons and should be immune from hurt and hardship is unrealistic. This beatitude holds three things. First, a promise. Second, a power principle that has universal application. And third, a prescription for happy living. The promise. Many people in my congregation would testify to the truth of God's promise in this beatitude. Their testimony is, when an unexpected tragedy hits, you can find the capacity to find happiness anyway. In the midst of tears, heartbreak, enormous loss, and horrific sorrow, suddenly a sweet mood like a gentle kiss will touch your wounded heart. That human experience is called mercy. It comes as an expression of God's love. The promise is there. It is for you, my friend. No matter where our road will lead, no matter what pain may hit, no matter what we do, God will be there with His mercy to forgive us, to hold us up and carry us through the tough times. The first step, then, is to accept God's mercy. All we need to do is accept the promise of this beatitude. It is God's promise that if we treat people mercifully, God will be merciful to us. Now let's look at the power principle. Give a little, and you get back a little. Give a lot, and you get back a lot. The power principle in this beatitude is the principle that teaches the law of proportionate return. If you are critical, you can expect people to criticize you. If you want people to treat you nicely, treat them nicely. It is a law of life as real and unavoidable as the physical laws that control our world and our bodies. If you really want to get high on happiness, look at this beatitude and then live it. It really works. It's impossible to give anything away. Whatever you give away will always come back to you. A promise, a power principle, and now a prescription. The prescription for joyful living is quite simple. If you want to be happy, treat people respectfully. The secret to the prescription, then, is to care. Caring becomes carrying. Yes, service is its own reward. The prescription for joyful living is so simple. Be good, be kind, be unselfish. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If you want positive things to happen, you must plant positive seeds. If you want to be friendly with people and you want people to be friendly toward you, be friendly to them. If you are surrounded by undesirable people, you can change them into attractive persons by calling attention to the best that is within them. Until they begin to believe they are beautiful people or can become beautiful persons, they will not treat you beautifully. If you want to treat people mercifully, you have to begin by treating yourself mercifully. However, if you lack that deep inner sense of self-esteem and self-worth, you will constantly have problems with other people. You will not treat them mercifully. You will be unkind. You will be critical. You will gossip. You will lash back. You will be defensive. And you will have undermined the most important aspects of your life until you find your life and the relationships collapsing around you. Think about it. What is it that keeps us from treating others mercifully? It is resentment. It is jealousy. It is the feeling that somebody may be threatening to you. If you can't handle resentment, jealousy, or victimitis, as I call it, then deep down in your own mind, heart, and soul, you must now learn how to deal with the lack of a positive self-image. That means your negative reactions are the result of hidden wounds that need to be healed. Do you have trouble with this be happy attitude? If so, then perhaps you need to identify, isolate, then heal your secret hidden wounds. The first step toward healing is to realize that you are not alone. Everyone has been wounded, hurt at some time or another. We may disguise our wounds behind a smile and keep our guard up. But if we really searched our lives, exposed ourselves, we would find that every person has a secret pain, an intimate agony, a private hurt, a very isolated, unrevealed, unexposed wound. Society inflicts these hidden wounds on us. You may have been the victims of racial prejudice or ethnic prejudice or sexism discrimination. Perhaps the people closest to us inflict the deepest and most painful hidden wounds. Other hidden wounds are inflicted on ourselves, by ourselves. We react too negatively to circumstances. We become our own worst enemies. We wound ourselves because we take criticism too seriously. We read too much into other people's actions and exaggerate their rejection of us. Now the question is, what do we do with these hidden wounds? How do we handle them? Well, first of all, don't nurse them. There are many people who take neurotic delight in nursing their hidden wounds. They still remember how their mother treated them, or how their father treated them, or how their first husband or first wife treated them. 30 years later, they are still obsessed with the wound. Now, this is a neurotic negative reaction. Don't nurse them. Second, don't curse them. Don't let your wounds make you into a bitter person. Never allow your anger to control your life. Don't curse your hurts. Don't nurse your hurts. And don't rehearse them. Try to forget them. Remember, you can't forget your hurts if you keep talking about them all the time. Well, what do you do with them then? You immerse them, drown them in a life of noble, positive service. Reverse them, turn the negatives into positives. And you can do that when you allow your wound to turn you into a more sensitive, compassionate, considerate, thoughtful, merciful, gracious, caring human being. Do you long to know God better? Do you struggle with doubt? Do you ever wish you had more faith? If so, you're not alone. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. So what does it mean to become pure in heart? I would like to suggest 4 steps that can help you now. Step 1, wise up. Step 2, clean up. Step 3, give up. And step 4, take up. If you are struggling with this idea of faith, wise up. Realize that God has planted faith within the instinct of every healthy, normal human being. Just as a healthy, normal bird instinctively takes to the trees, or a healthy fish swims in the water, so the healthy, normal human person is inclined to be religious. However, even as animals lose some of their innate drives when they're taken from their natural habitat, so the human person can lose his or her innate ability to believe in a loving God when he is away too long from positive, faith-producing environments. Now, that is why it is so important to carefully surround ourselves with positive, believing, emotionally healthy persons. The truth is, religion is a sign of health. Skepticism is a mark of illness. Unbelief is abnormal. It's normal to become a believer. The second point, clean up. If the first step toward developing more faith is to wise up, to realize the belief is instinctive, normal, and healthy, then the second step is to clean up any negative emotions in your life that might be blocking your faith and keeping you from seeing God. Worry, anxiety, pressure, frustration, stress, all of these can cause us to be blinded to the real world around us. When we take this one step further, you can see how easy it would be for some negative emotion to block us from even being aware of the presence of God. So I ask you, is it possible that somewhere in your subconscious there lurks hostility toward your father or your mother? Is it possible that you have within your subconscious some negative feelings toward your family, your friends, your business associates, or competitors? Have you ever been hurt by someone who never came back to apologize to you? Do you have a secret that you have never shared with any other living human being about something you have done, are doing, or are thinking about doing, which is either illegal or immoral? Have you suffered grief and heartache, and did your prayers seem to go unanswered? Do you feel inferior to other persons, and do you have trouble loving yourself? Well, there are countless questions I could ask. Let me just say, if you answered yes to any one of these questions, you are not totally free of negative emotions. And as long as you have negative emotions within yourself, now listen carefully, don't trust your doubts. For doubt is a subconscious defense mechanism fabricated by an insecure, guilty, or troubled person to keep that person from becoming a believer in God who might make demands to meet. So if there is within your personality some resentment or some hostility or some guilt, some fear or some worry, find it, uncover it, extract it, get rid of it. You will be surprised to find how much your faith will improve. If there is a negative emotion within you that is blocking your relationship with God, clean up. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Here, now, are some exercises to help you. Number 1, think of some hidden hurt in your past and pray a forgiving prayer for the person who is the cause of your hurt. C.S. Lewis said it. We all agree that forgiveness is a beautiful idea until we have to practice it. Exercise 2. Think of someone of whom you are jealous and pray for that person's prosperity. 3. Now think of somebody you may have hurt, cheated, insulted, slighted, snubbed, or criticized. Call him or her and invite this person to have dinner or lunch with you. Confess your unchristian attitude and ask for forgiveness. Next exercise. Think of some neglected cause, project, or person and surprise yourself with a streak of generosity. I mean, give and give generously of yourself and your substance. Exercise 5. Now pray a totally honest prayer to Jesus Christ. If you doubt God, tell him so. He'll still love you, even if you don't believe in him. After all, God specializes in loving sinners. So, do you really want to build up your faith? The first lesson is wise up. The second lesson is clean up. And now the third lesson is give up. Yes, the third step is give up. Give up anything that may be blocking your faith. Perhaps there's something in your life that you may have to relinquish with God's help. If it's something that's blocking the birth of faith, then give it up. If it's a choice between life and death, between really living life joyously or hanging on to a bad habit that robs you of faith and enthusiasm, then for goodness sakes, the choice is clear. You can find the strength to give up something when it threatens something else that is more precious. I witness to you that the times that I, in my life, have felt closest to God were the times when I either gave up something I desired very much or made an enormous commitment to accomplish something great for Him, which, of course, is a way of self-denying also. Please understand, I am not saying you have to quit smoking I hope you do for your own health's sake. Or lose weight, and maybe you should. But I'm not saying that it's impossible to believe if you are overweight or if you smoke. What I am suggesting is that becoming pure in heart may mean that you have to give up something that you treasure so much. It may be money, it may be smoking, it may be overeating, it may be alcohol or drugs, it may be extramarital sex. I don't know what it is that is blocking you from a lively faith with God. But what I do want is for you to develop an honest, sincere, authentic, alive faith in God. Yes, many people do not have the faith they should have simply because they're too scared to stick their neck out and try to do a miracle with the Almighty. So try it. We're up to lesson number 4, take up. To be pure in heart, we need to not only wise up and know that health is the normal state, clean up and get rid of the negative emotional blockages. Give up those habits that may be blocking our development. But now we have to take up a dream, a project, a cause, an issue. Take up God's call to do something fantastic. After all, what does pure in heart mean? Does it mean that we are sinless? Of course not. No person is entirely sinless. A pure field is not one that's been plowed so that it's free of weeds. A pure field is a productive field where corn or pineapples or cotton or oranges are being grown. The same is true in our life. You can get by without a lot of things if you have something great to live for. It is so simple. Do something beautiful for God. If you simply give your life to God today, He can flow through you. He can make your heart right. He can clear the rubbish from your life and replace rubbish with a wonderful holy dream. And you'll come to realize that this new burning desire, this consuming dream, this strong sense of destiny, this inner drive is in fact the reality of the life of God surging in your personality and singing in your soul. God is now alive within you. That's enthusiasm. And God in you. And it is for you now a simple decision. Right now, who you are, where you are, to decide, I'm going to accept a positive mental attitude, a be happy attitude, and let the faith flow free through me. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. The hope in this 7th Beatitude is that we might achieve a reputation which will feed our need for self-respect, self-esteem, and self-worth. How we handle this very human question is extremely important. So many of us think of it in terms of being popular. But I am not really thinking about that kind of popularity here. Unless you can maintain an honorable reputation, you will not have the kind of popularity that will leave you with a wholesome and healthy sense of self-esteem. So the goal is not just to be popular, but to be popularly recognized as a beautiful, responsible human being, a child of God. How do we build a reputation as beautiful children of God? Well, this beatitude gives us the way. Blessed are the peacemakers. That's the key. For they shall be known as children of God. Now, I believe that all of us are called to be peacemakers. And being a peacemaker can be extremely rewarding. Bringing peace where there is tension and conflict and strife delivers in its wake a healthy sense of satisfaction, self-esteem, self-worth. You feel so good about yourself. But I have to say, being a peacemaker can be very dangerous, too. We see breaches all around us, in families, between labor and management, between nations, between political parties, between religious institutions. When God sees a breach, He builds a bridge and calls us to help in this process of being peacemakers. For years, this has been my driving spirit, and the spirit behind the drive is what I call possibility thinking. Possibility thinking says yes to an idea if it's going to help people who are in pain. It says yes to an idea if it holds the prospect of contributing to peace, prosperity, and pride in the human person. I really feel, and I'm sure you agree with me, that we are all called by God to be repairers of the breach, restorers of paths to dwell in. Where a relationship has been ripped, torn apart, we are called to bring about reconciliation. Where there is a rupture, let us produce rapture. Where there is a scar, create a star. And healing where there is hurt. Everybody can be a peacemaker, no matter who we are, what we do. But as I said before, peacemaking is not always easy. There are times when our own inner conflicts and inner securities hold us back from being repairers of the breach and restorers of the path. What helps us then? Why, the restoring power of love. If we are to create peace in this world, we must understand what the issue really is. It's not love versus hate or war versus peace. It is love versus fear and insecurity. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is fear. Who are the peacemakers? They're not necessarily the people who are talking or parading peace all the time. Peacemakers oftentimes are the quiet people who may be doing something, silently creating something, building something, bridges mostly. Yes, maybe peacemakers are people like you and me who in our own ways try to bring Jesus Christ into the human situation. Do you want peace in your family? Do you want peace in your community? Do you want peace with other races and other cultures and other religions and other countries? There will not be peace anywhere as long as there's a war going on in your heart and in your soul. So how do you begin? By making peace with yourself. What inner conflicts rage within your spirit right now? You can be a peacemaker once you get your life together. Once you've let Jesus become your best friend. When Jesus is your friend, you have an internalized positive self-image. You become a possibility thinker. You begin to say, I can do all things through Christ because I am his friend. I am somebody. I can do something. That's a great way to live. Yes, all of us can be peacemakers wherever we are. There may be tension inside of you, or in your home, or in your place of business. But you can resolve this tension if you give it all you've got. Tackling the problem of tension is no different than tackling any other problem. You make peace in much the same way you solve other problems. Make up your mind, I'm going to be a bridge builder. The people who ultimately win at what they go after are the people who give it all they've got. You can do it too. You can be a peacemaker if you believe in yourself, and you'll be a bridge builder. The last Be Happy attitude, and the final lesson. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Persecution. It's something all of us have faced, or will face. It is true that we in the free countries are not constantly shadowed by the threat of physical persecution for our beliefs. But at one time or another, we can all expect to face some kind of harassment, snubs, rejection, or discrimination. Nobody is immune. The truth is, no social unit, no racial or religious community, and no age grouping is free from the sometimes blatant and more often subtle stabs of persecution. Ever feel persecuted? Then be of good cheer. You can choose to be happy anyway. This Be Happy attitude is for you. Yes, you can be happy too, even if you are the innocent victim of authentic injustice, insult, injury, discrimination, or oppression. Is it possible? Oh, yes. We are free to choose our attitude in any given situation. We are free to choose a positive attitude, no matter how negative the condition. What a life-changing concept. You can choose to take a positive attitude toward the persecution, and if you do this, eventually you will triumph. Wouldn't you like to win over those who persecute you? What is better than winning? Better than winning, better than conquering is converting your opponent until he agrees with you. It's turning an enemy into a friend. That's better than simply conquering someone. Now, to keep a positive, be happy attitude in painful times, remember, this too shall pass away. Persecution is never eternal. To recover from persecution, be prepared to pass through these 3 phases. The first phase is what I call the collision phase. This is the phase when you realize this horrible thing that's happening is not a dream. It's really happening, and it's bad, and it's happening to you. The second phase is withdrawal. When you talk about fear, guilt, hatred, or anger, all of these emotions are expressions of the tendency to retreat, recoil, withdraw from accepting the horrible reality. The third phase, adjustment. In this phase, you finally learn how to accommodate yourself to the pain, to the persecution, to the hurt, to the loss. Now, the only way I know how you can pass through these 3 phases effectively is to trust God. It's possible, no matter how great, how deep, how bitter the suffering, when we turn our trials over to Jesus, he can turn them into triumphs. If we will only let him, then it will be possible for us to turn our problems into opportunities, to tackle our opportunities and succeed, to dream great dreams and make them come true, to pick up the broken pieces and start over again, and finally to become a truly beautiful human being like Jesus. Happiness. Here's how to make all of this happen. Pray this simple prayer now. Jesus, life can be tough. I need a friend. Right now, I'm asking you to be my best friend. And keep these be happy attitudes flowing through my mind, now and to the end of my life. Amen.